welcome to our late night stream. I have to be a little bit quieter than normal. This is our Austin review, but this is the pre-show, so I'm trying to keep my voice down just a little bit. Hello guys, Maria's in our live chat. Hello Matt, hello Benny. So we're losing the UK guys, but I think we've got the Americans and the Australians are up and on their way to work, so we will stream live. I'm going to have to move closer to the mic. So if you are watching this after the fact, there will be a timestamp that will just lead you, click that in the description, and it will lead you straight to where the show proper starts. I've got Matt here who can talk at a normal volume. Hi, Matt.
I can talk at a normal volume, but will I talk at a normal volume?
Who knows?
That is a question.
Maybe I'll just turn Matt down. Try talking now.
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. There they go.
Okay.
We've got Kurt
you knew
here.
I was going to do that.
We've got Kurt here as well. We've got Sir Savar Istua. Sorry about that. We've got Dilly, and we've got Acard and Maria, other Maria, and yeah. So it is a different tone, and it is just me and Matt. Unfortunately, Christina got stuck in traffic, which happens. Like, we know this from the Miami Grand Prix as well. You make those plans, and then all of a sudden, just the whole network gums up.
Yeah, and Austin, I think, is renowned for having not the greatest traffic management. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as that race that was in France, but
yeah. Oh yeah, where everyone got stuck for ages. And then the other thing is, like, look at this. Look at it in the stream. Like, it's midnight here, and look at my eyes. Look at the bags under my eyes. No,
that's it. Yeah, it's a good thing you're not in 4K.
Yeah, no, well, I've got yeah. Well, that I will be in 4K soon. I'm not going to talk about that now, but there may be a chance that I'm in 4K on a major streaming service come January. Who knows? But yeah, I'm going to have to look at that camera to make myself look wide-eyed. Look at those bags. I think that's...
You're going to have to get serious about your makeup.
That's unavoidable, though, when you've been up since 7 in the morning and you are 45 years old and I've had a full day. I've had
7.
I've actually had a great day. Yeah, because
it's Sunday. What are you doing up at 7 on a Sunday? Cats?
Well, no, what I've been doing, because we've got the show on a Sunday, and because it's race day, and so for me, actually, the races are quite intense now because we're making show notes. I'm monitoring the lap time so that I can argue with Matt when Matt talks about tires.
Because we actually care.
yeah. But like,
it's really ruined everything caring.
But it's really intense during race time. And on top of that, we're hanging out in the Discord, in the patron chat. You know, you and me are very active in the patron Discord chat. And also we're on social media. And I've got to do I'll do my little zinger hot takes. And then people will, and I'm on there, what? Everyone's being so mean. All I did was do a mean hot take. Then I go, okay, that's fine. But yeah, so it's really an intense time, and you need to be alert. You actually need to be alert and awake. And I'm not complaining about my job because, you know, we're not mining coal. So we cannot complain. Someone said to me, oh, you're going to be up late tonight. I'm like, yeah, I'll be producing till like 2, 3 in the morning. And they were like, oh, no, bless. But I'm like, yeah, but I'm not mining coal. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm not.
Yeah. No. Back when I started, I would be up watching the races in Asia and Australia, and then writing
5, 6
for like an hour or two, writing you know, thousands of words about it.
Oh, my Japanese Grand Prix this year was 4 a.m. for us in the UK. I was up for that. And Vegas, if I'm not in Vegas, because there's a chance I will be in Vegas. If I'm
you by yourself, or is this a we thing?
So it will be a not missed Apex thing. But if it comes with funding, then we'll try and do a missed Apex thing. And
we should talk offline.
Yeah. Because nothing's confirmed. That's why I've not mentioned it to you. Right. Oh, sorry, Matt.
No. We should talk offline because
this is what I
have
do with
other
Matt.
Things that might be happening out there.
This is what I do with Matt, though. I'm like, Matt, I'm in Miami next week. Like, you have to be in Miami next week as well.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. And to be fair, Matt is always like, yeah, I'll be there, which is cool. But yeah, no. So what I try and do, because it's an intense thing, I try and do exercise in the morning like you do. You go on a pre-race run, don't you, or a pre-show
run?
Oh,
I'm so glad you asked me about my pre-race run. Because I smashed my personal record for the park run last
5K,
week. I was very happy. I ran like a 35:30
for a 5K.
No, it's 6.8K.
Oof. Okay, that's a good time.
Today, I ran a 34:25, and at my age, I think that's pretty good.
So you and me we've never managed to actually go for a run together. So I don't actually know. My problem is I'm very injury prone. But yeah, I would. I'm light at the moment. Under 12 stone for the first time in ages. So that's like
Oh,
76
nicely done.
kilograms. So I'm quite skinny belinky. I think the last time you saw me, I was probably up at like 83, and now I'm like 76. So it has fallen off. And that,
Wow. You
God,
definitely weigh less than me.
it makes running easier. It really does make running
It does.
a
Yeah.
lot easier. Well done on your PB. But yeah, so
Thank you.
I've just started doing like a Sunday morning tennis thing, so that it gets my blood pumping, and then normally
Yeah,
have
because you're all into the
yeah,
tennis
yeah.
now.
Oh yeah. And then normally it's like a midday race or 1 p.m. race, and it just puts me in the right mindset. Well, whereas today I still did that morning tennis, but obviously there's a lot of day left
Between,
I was
yeah.
like, bloody hell, 8 p.m. So I had a master plan, which is basically me and the kid and a couple of friends. We would go bowling, 10-pin bowling, have a couple of beers, come home,
Right.
have a nap, have a big sleep, and then be alert for the race. Worked perfectly. Had a couple of mid-afternoon pints, went to bed at like 5 p.m. and woke up at 7:45. So missed all the pre-show. Woke up at 7:45 going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And Nick was like, don't worry, you didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. You didn't miss it. Oh,
That
yeah.
is such a bad feeling. When you hit the alarm and fall back asleep, or you just
Yeah,
miss
no,
it
I did.
altogether, and your eyes open, and you immediately know
So
my
yeah.
schedule is off.
I snoozed the first alarm, but that was fine. I got up in time to have a coffee and everything like that. So it was all good. But bowling, 10-pin bowling, I feel
Right.
like in another life, I would be really good at 10-pin bowling. Like I feel like I've got kind of a knack for it, right? But
You think you'd be good at everything, though? I need evidence here.
I do think that, right? So today, like I got 139, and it should have been better. After 5 frames, I was at 100. So 5 frames, I
Right.
was 100. So I should have got like a 200. And I was like, strike, spare, strike, spare, strike, and I was absolutely flying. And so that's whatever. By the by, I won. But one of the friends I was playing with was doing the big spinny bowls. So like they throw it down and they cup it with
Oh,
their
right.
hand,
Yeah.
and it goes in a big banana, and then goes and gets a strike.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I love that, because that spin actually is, if you look at professional bowlers,
Yeah.
that's how they control where
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ball
yeah.
winds up, and being able to control the spin actually winds up being really useful.
It looked
I
mega.
saw a program about them making a ball that made it easier to get the correct amount of spin.
That's interesting. So we're using lane
Yeah.
balls, and so he's teaching my son to do that. So my son's getting these big curls, right? But what I do is I have this very kind of regimented. I take 4 steps. The steps are lined up with where my hand movements at the back, and then I put it down the right hand side, and I just put a little bit of curl on it, so it drifts into the 1 pin. And they went, oh, your dad's doing the old fashioned old man dad bowling. I was like, what? And so apparently, like, my style of bowling is very old fashioned and outdated. And I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
I know, but I was like, I turned to them. These guys were in their, the guy was in his 30s, the lady's in, his girlfriend's in late 20s. And I said, yeah, but you have to remember, do you know, have you heard about the 80s? Like when I first went bowling, it was literally the 80s. so yes, I do have an old man bowling style, but who won?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, the question is who's winning. This always makes me think of, I wish I could remember his name, in the NBA, who took the granny style free throws.
Oh, yes, the throwing it up underarm.
Yeah, and they made fun of him, but he hit like, I don't know, 90+%, 95%, 99. He was unstoppable from the free throw line, to the point where they had to make it illegal to shoot free throws that way. And he just was like, yeah, you can laugh at me, but look at the numbers.
Yep.
Look at the numbers.
Yeah, Maria, there's fashions of bowling. And Kurt says, spanners, I could beat Verstappen in equal machinery. I could beat Verstappen at bowling. That is a challenge. I'll put that challenge out to Verstappen. And just to be clear, Matt, just because I'm having to lower my real life tone and move the mic closer, like, you do not need to match me.
No, that was my mistake, because I talked off axis. That was my bad.
This doesn't need to turn into like ASMR.
ASMR.
Welcome to late
night with Missed Apex podcast.
We don't need to do that. We don't.
Yeah, my wife is home. She's awake, so all good.
We don't have to do that. We get to do that.
Yes.
Okay, so it's just the two of us. It's going to be a bit more of a relaxed chat, I think. Inevitably, with 2 people, it is shorter than normal, so we may well go like 57 minutes.
I'm going to see that as a challenge.
Go for it, Matt. You've got all the room in the world to talk about the your tires and your strategy and everything.
I wish more had happened, really.
Do you know what? That might be an interesting thing to start on, like the overall entertainment of the weekend. I'm gonna put that in. So, you
Okay.
didn't. Oh,
Yeah.
Matt, you didn't move the sprint notes down.
Yeah. No, I did move it down.
You didn't. It's there.
I did. I did.
Oh, in that
I
case,
moved it down below big ticket item
maybe my
to use. It might not have caught up
Yeah,
yet
might
with
not
the
refreshed.
refreshing. Yeah.
All right, that's fine. I won't risk refreshing it now at this late
Yeah.
point.
No, this is like remain missed Apex.
Yeah. Should we do Missed Apex bowling at some point?
Oh yeah, we should bowling. We have the golf tournament with
Can I-
Scott
right.
and Summers.
So I don't. Oh yeah, golf as well. Like do you know what I was saying to my son and this guy Tom I hang out with, and we were saying like that one of the best things in life is just games and just competing at games. Like I just love anything that's like competitive and it's one of the greatest things of our existence is we can just do dumb games. So this guy, he's better at me at tennis. I wonder if he's listening. I beat him at karting, which we would expect. I'm reasonable at karting.
Yeah, no, you by dint of lots of practice and coaching have gotten good.
Yeah, I've cheated, and at golf we're even with very different styles. But I beat him at bowling, and then it was like there was an arcade, and he's like, right, now we've got to do the punching machine. Now we've got to do basketball. Now we've got to do air hockey, so that he could basically win. And you know those punching bags with the things. You hit, you
like
press
they
the button.
measure the force. Yeah.
So I've got a really bad record where I've lost to like my sister-in-law. I've lost to small children because I just mishit it. I just mishit it. I can never get a good clean hit on this thing. And they were like, right, we're definitely doing it. So me, my 15-year-old, this lad and his fiance, his girlfriend, we all had a go on it. And oh my God, my son, Jesus, like he's up at like the 900s, and this lad as well, strong guy, up in the 900s. I'm like, oh God, I can't lose to this. But I got the cleanest hit. Didn't beat them, but I got in the 900s as well. But oh my God, my wrist, Matt. I've got 45-year-old wrists, and it's like there comes a point I should not be punching a bag as hard as I can.
Yeah. No, I get that. It's easy to do something that you did 20 years ago, and you do it once, and you're like, oh, right, yes, that's why no one my age does that thing anymore. Now it makes sense.
Hey, we've got quite a lot of viewers, by the way, late night. This might be good.
Yeah,
Anyway,
well, hey.
sorry, this is pre-show, so don't get on us. Like, we like to sit and chat before we do a thing. Like, you don't have a coffee before you start work? You don't sit and have a chat with your coworkers before you start work?
Water cooler talk.
Exactly.
Water cooler talk. There we go.
Yeah, and also what people don't realize, like, we don't have calls because we're men. It's not like we call each other up in the week and go, hey, Matt, do you want to have a conversation about such and such? Yeah. So this is our
Never
time
happens.
to chat. This is our time to chat.
This is when we catch up. And
do you know who's terrible at? Alex and Brad will phone and just be like, hey, what's up? I'm like, what? What are you doing?
This?
What are you doing?
Oh man, I'm kind of brokenhearted. I mentioned it, like my wife's been out of town, and I just want to say that I've been very brave. Past 48 hours.
Have you cooked?
I have not starved to death, and I didn't have to order out, and I don't currently have food poisoning. So I feel like I've made a big step in my development here.
That's growth.
I'm starting to cook dinner last night and cook my dinner, and and I'm like, yeah, it is my favorite dish, which is pasta plus whatever I can find in the fridge. And I look at my text, and a friend of mine had texted me like 10 minutes after I started dinner. He's like, hey, I'm going to be in your neighborhood. Want to grab some food and drinks? I'm like, I've
just eaten.
But it was too late. He was gone. He had already gotten home.
My favorite thing on my own to cook is like a southern fried chicken, like fillet thing from a box.
Oh, yeah.
And just air fryer. And then I'll just have that with just mustard and barbecue sauce, no carbs, apart from the bread. And
delicious.
Yeah. Okay, we should do the F1 show.
Yes, we should. I guess that's why we're here, after all. There was a race. Allegedly.
And I'm really actually excited about the championship connotations of that. So this is a lie because there's no Christina because she's still in traffic. And I've never done it.
She's with us in spirit.
I have just poured myself a Red Bull and a vodka as well. So that's good. Spinny car.
Spinny car. See you in a sec.
I did try and get Uncle Steve as well to jump on, but I think he's doing his taxi run where he takes his wife in.
All right.
And I tried to get Jono, but I missed him by 10 minutes. 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 No problem. Just you and me. Let's
Advanced planning is our watchword here at Missed Apex.
You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So, let's be friends, but let's be quiet friends because it's midnight and my family are all asleep. So I've moved the mic a little bit closer. I might be a little bit quieter and softer, but don't worry, Matt is on the show as well, and he can be as loud as he wants. But if I'd have said to you in pre-season that by October in 2025, we would have 3 drivers within 40 points with 5 events left, you'd have taken that. That would have been like, yeah, that's like a 2010 scenario. That's a 2012 scenario. I think, this in a way is an amazing season for Formula One. It's interesting. It's unique. I don't think I can remember a season where the 3rd place driver, in my mind, is the favorite to win the title. And the 2nd place driver is a close 2nd favorite. And the competitiveness of the cars has seesawed backwards and forwards. There was a time where I was absolutely convinced that we would have McLaren 1-2s from here till the end of the season. And Red Bull seems to have turned that on its head. And we're also in a season where McLaren now and Mercedes and Ferrari are making a habit of just interfering with the championship in the top 3 and putting themselves on the podium and really mixing up and stirring this world championship pot. So coming up, we'll discuss, has Piastri driven into a dead end? Could Norris have done more today? And can anything stop this Verstappen charge as he closes the gap that was once over 100 points to just 40? We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind permission of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined by Matt, who does not have to whisper, but you can if you want.
Yeah, loud American. I think I see exactly where this is going.
United States Grand Prix. So I say be as loud as you want, Matt. And actually, there's a lot of tire analysis. There's a lot of tech analysis. So a perfect show for you and me to be on late night together. Unfortunately, Christina is stuck in traffic, which does happen from Grand Prix. We've certainly had big delays when we've been at tracks.
It turns out if you go to the actual race, a lot of other people have made this same choice.
Yeah. So I did a sprint review on Saturday, and it was, just my opinions, my reactions to things. And we're not going to not talk about the sprint stuff. But if you want an in-depth analysis of my take on that, go back on our channels and go and check out the sprint review. However, Matt, I'd say this was an interesting weekend in terms of what we got to learn about the McLaren management. The fact that Zach Brown and Andrea Stella just went off at Hulkenberg was wild.
Well, yeah, I am really beginning to wonder about how they are viewing the. I think I even caught a comment like, "We don't care if we win the drivers' championship or not," which you've got. That's ludicrous. That's marketing money multipliers sitting there for you, and you've not won it yet with either of your drivers. But I guess we're going to start with the repercussions, and I just what repercussions for what? What exactly happened in Singapore that was so bad that you had to do anything to any of your drivers? And since you're talking about the sprint, let's just go ahead and make the point right now. If, as we guessed, the penalty was Norris had to go out first and sooner for qualifying, well, then he missed out on that track evolution for sprint qualifying that Verstappen had. And it might have been enough, if you look at the gap between them, that might have been enough to put Norris on pole. If Norris is on pole, none of the rest of the bad things happened to McLaren this weekend.
Yeah, well, they walked it back quite a lot. So they walked it back from there'll be repercussions. Norris didn't get away with anything to, you probably won't notice and it'll all be fine. And Brundle saying, well, maybe you'll notice something a little bit in Vegas. So it was all very cryptic. And I do wonder whether they just shouldn't have bothered telling us anything at all. Maybe they should have they should have just left it. But I'm really glad they ended up walking back their criticism of Hulkenberg after the sprint. I was quite critical of them coming out and calling it amateur hour, but they did in qualifying come out and say no, we're not blaming that on Hulkenberg at the moment. But just wondering about you know, your impressions of the weekend overall. It's a sprint weekend. So, you know, they did the whole, this is better than FP2. But really, in the sprint, there was only about 3 or 4 laps of racing action. And then the race itself was uncharacteristically dull, I would say.
Well, yeah, I was very frustrated. And I think Pirelli and F1 would have been frustrated too. They brought the tires that were separated by a step to try and bring the 2-stop and 1-stop closer together based on what happened last year.
Yeah.
But what actually happened was because of the condition change, and I believe the evolution of the track, which we saw last year too, the mediums went farther than anyone thought. What you essentially had was the usability of the hard tire essentially had disappeared by the time we got to the race, because we did have a couple of hard tire starters and nobody used it
went to it
after the people who started on it, and because their pace was wretched. And
so Mike Caulfield called it as medium hard. So he called the 1-stop, but actually it was, I guess, quote unquote, worse than that, because actually people were able to go medium soft or soft medium.
Yeah, and that is a big chunk of that is just how much the track evolved, in the sense of how much rubber was on the track, made the soft tire a viable option because it had enough grip and wasn't just sliding everywhere, even though it was really hot.
It was almost like Singapore in a way, where because people had kind of decided we don't want to go onto the hard and we also don't want to do a 2-stop, we've now got to eke out this medium and soft. So actually it was a race where no one was pushing.
Yeah, there were points where everybody was pushing, but it was a very delicate balancing act in both stints to sort of optimize your lap time. And it was also, I think, with the wind and just with where these cars have gotten to development wise, you could see that even down the long straights, DRS overtake was not a guarantee by any stretch of the imagination. So it was difficult to pass, and everyone had to be super delicate with their tires to make their chosen strategies work out. And because the hard tire was useless, we didn't get really much strategic variation either. And when there's no strategic variation, it can be kind of, I hate to use the word dull, because stuff happened and there was definitely excitement. The battle between Norris and Leclerc was sort of great all race long. And I found myself going, oh man, I hope he gets second, just because.
Well, no, it was
Ferrari, they need like a prize. I mean, it's been such a sad season for him.
That was a good battle. That sort of made the race as well. And the TV direction was slightly better, although we did miss out. I think the TV direction,
I mean, why didn't I see anyone's girlfriend or wife? I've gotten used to that by now.
I don't even know what Carlos Sainz's girlfriend was doing. Like, what did she think of the
where was
crash?
her reaction to his crash? I mean, come on.
Yeah. So the TV direction was like, it was a step better than we had at Singapore. But still, I think there's an over focus on the front cars. Like, we are at the moment, in a way that we haven't in previous eras, we're missing out on what's going on in the midfield. So there were cars that were very close together, like Lawson and Stroll were very close together, you know, and if you look on the timing screens, you go, why aren't we watching that almost definite safety car producing incident?
Yeah, I think it was maybe between lap about 42 and 46. They were literally like, oh, we just found out all these overtakes happened below P5. And we're just going to find them all and show them to you now, because we can't show you pictures from the garage anymore because we got yelled at for that.
Yeah.
But there's always good racing. And a lot of times the most interesting strategy stuff does happen. Like, they missed, I think Antonelli had a 2-stop and he was on soft tires. And yeah, he was all the way at the back because of his silliness with whoever he was being silly with. Who did he get into a contretemps with?
Antonelli with Sainz.
Yeah,
Antonelli
with
and Sainz.
Yeah, it was Sainz. And he was charging from the back through the midfield, and that's just guaranteed action shots
Yeah.
and likely passes where they don't normally happen, both of which are fun to watch. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they don't have someone there just like looking at the timing screens and going, hey guys, guess what? Guess what? Can we get some pictures of this?
Okay, let's focus in then on the leaders. There was a good battle for P2, and that was crucial for the championship. But my first question to you, Matt, is why is Max Verstappen so good? No, no, not as a person, but obviously we know he's good. I think the main thing that I admire about Verstappen that people have criticized me for, because you have to say Verstappen is a legendary, like godlike pace. And I'm sure he's
Right.
very fast. I'm sure he's as fast as anyone that's been in a Formula One car. But the key thing for Verstappen is he does the good thing more often than everyone else. If you and me, we go on a putting green and we try and make a shot from 20 feet, one time we'll make it. And we'll go, yeah, you're using the same kind of ball. You can go on the same green as the pros and you can make that putt. The difference is that the pros are putting it much nearer the hole much more often. Verstappen is consistently this year developing. Like, I feel very confident that the performance of the Red Bull is being well represented by the driver. And so, you go back to Williams with Sorokin and Stroll and you go, well, I'm actually not altogether confident that that is the ultimate pace of that Williams car. We're going back to the beginning of the hybrid era. Whereas with the Red Bull, you go, we can probably gauge how well that Red Bull is doing by how well Verstappen is doing. And so the fact that they are now looking very strong, qualifying strong, and having that race pace, we've sort of answered the question of, is that development just because of those tracks where high downforce wasn't really an issue, or have they made a big step forward? I think they've made a big step forward.
I think they have. And the thing is, and especially at the end of a regulation set and at this time of year, it's very much a bit of both. They found something that they have brought to the car. I know there've been some floor updates and some wing updates and some balance issues. I mean, fundamentally, when Max was complaining about the car, he was always saying, I can't get it to turn. I can't get it to turn. I turn the wheel, the car doesn't turn, which is a balance issue. There's a weight mechanical balance, and there's also an aero balance that will change depending upon how fast you're going. And there was a mismatch there that wound up with him into turns, too much weight on the back, not enough on the front. So he would just understeer, and he absolutely hated it. And they just fixed it, or they fixed it enough. They didn't have to fix it perfectly, but they fixed it enough for him. And here I'm going to give us a very boring show by agreeing with you. If you ask me to pick a driver to get the most out of whatever they were thrown into across all disciplines right now, I would pick Max. I would just say that whatever your car is capable of, he's going to get closer to 100% than anyone else. And he does it relentlessly. If he's leading, if he's behind, if the entire fate of the universe depended on it, it would be no difference. The output would be there regardless. And it's really, it's very impressive for anyone who's ever dealt in high pressure situations. It's incredibly impressive.
Heidi
That
in
level of consistency. Yeah.
Heidi in our Patreon Discord says, just wait till this kid grows up. And then lots of people mentioning like the iRacing is total commitment to motorsport and stuff. But yeah, it is the consistency. And when we were interviewing Valtteri Bottas during that 2019-2020 period, and they were saying, what's so good about Lewis Hamilton? He said, again, it's the consistency. It's like, yeah, I can do the same things as Lewis is doing, but I can't do them all the time. I can't do them consistently. And so now we're looking at a championship where Max Verstappen has been delivering consistently, certainly since Zandvoort. I think in Zandvoort, or before Zandvoort, he was 104 points behind. I think that was before Zandvoort. And now the gap is 40 points. And in that time, the McLaren drivers have been making mistakes. They have been fumbling. So you've had Lando Norris, not maximising in qualifying. You've had, frankly, Piastri. The wheels have completely fallen off here. So he's had that Baku stuff. He got outmuscled at Singapore. Yes, he got some repercussions out of it. And he's been very poor this weekend. I think he caused that accident in the sprint. And he's just been off pace, and I think he's been off pace behind Norris now for maybe the last 8 or 9 races. He really has looked like that second best driver. But for Verstappen, I mean, Matt, I think I think you put it best in our WhatsApp when you were talking about how much of an impact not having the sprint race really made on the McLarens this weekend.
Yeah. So to be clear, I think for Piastri, there's a bit of a pattern. It doesn't hold up all races where he will show up and Norris will be faster than him. But by time you get to qualifying, he will be as fast or faster than Norris, which means he's doing homework. He's looking at telemetry. His team is working with him to adjust the car. And it's also important to realize, this is a second little thing, that he never has gone for, to my knowledge, the update that Norris wanted to let him manage the front of the car better on entry. Once he got that update, the two of them were much more equal across the season. So he doesn't think he needs it. He prefers the aerodynamic advantage he thinks it gives him. But what he has shown is he needs those extra practice sessions.
Oh, that's
So
interesting.
he was already going to be a little bit on the back foot because he only gets one sprint quali. Then you have the sprint race. So the sprint race for all of the teams is also a data gathering session. It's basically their FP2.
Okay.
20 races, race conditions. You can learn a lot about the medium tire. You can learn a lot about where your car setup is. You
And they
can
didn't get it.
then
Yeah.
go into the release of Park from A and adjust your car for the rest of the weekend's conditions.
Yeah, I love
Unless,
Oh, sorry, Matt. Go on, yeah.
you see, I do this to you. I was going to say, unless you smash yourself and your teammate out of the race at turn 1, lap 1, and then you don't get any of that information, and then you're behind everybody.
Yeah.
For all we know, McLaren might have been the fastest car this weekend. We don't know because they weren't on a level playing field by the time we got to Sunday.
Yeah, and so so Verstappen in the sprint race where he didn't have to defend against the McLarens because they put themselves out, he was defending
Right.
against a Russell who was quick over one lap, but I think maybe didn't have the tire management or tire wear potential. He fended that off, but they identified, I think, that the rear wasn't, he was complaining that the rear wasn't quite right. And so you can change that balance as you go into the race weekend. And McLaren didn't have that. And so it was much more stark in Piastri, who just looked like he couldn't deliver the pace in qualifying. That was, to compound a very bad sprint weekend. He then just had no pace in qualifying, and it wasn't he messed up Q3 or something bad happened. He literally just did not have that pace, and then you go, well, does that translate into race pace? Also no. Piastri was also behind on race pace.
Yeah, and this is the thing. And I'm just going to go back to Singapore after the incident, the opening incident. The way he sounded on the radio was just despondent,
Yeah.
and I was confused. Partly because, I mean, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. He lost a place to his teammate, but he's not getting enough points. Neither of them are getting anywhere near enough points on you to make a difference by the time we get to the end of the championship. Your job is literally to just lose slightly less than you can afford and you win. This is a great position to be in. I don't have to win every time. I don't have to take every risk. I'm managing. But I think it is really beginning to play on his psyche. The fact that Norris just kind of seems a little bit quicker
Yeah.
and a lot more relaxed.
And the tire wear thing is coming into it as well. Like today was a clear one. Like it was high wear, trying to hang on to those C4 and C3s, and like clearly Norris did a lot better preserving those tires. And what was interesting actually was, and maybe you can explain this a little bit, was it was key in the battle with Leclerc. It looked like he'd burned up his tires trying to overtake Leclerc, and it was over, and he was dropping back. But then he was able to come back, and so that's the difference between thermal, deg, and wear.
Right. So what you're addressing, actually, this is bless. What happens is the tire grabs the pavement and is actually always being twisted, and that causes it to heat up. So the more you heat that tire up, and now this is the carcass, this is the internal structure that really keeps its heat in. This isn't the surface, which can get hot and cold and hot and cold. This is inside of the tire, the deep stuff. This is like your core temperature if you're a human being. Once you get that hot, you lose performance.
Yeah.
And we saw this with Leclerc in the first stint, and we saw it with Norris in the second stint. That tire reached a level of performance where it began to overheat. And at that point, you have no choice. You have to back off until it cools back down. And it'll cool back down because it's a soft tire. And you're also taking tread off of it every revolution. So as the tread gets thinner, it retains less heat. So this is my working theory as to why you saw sort of this mid-stretch and then it began to work again. But what's nice about these tires that Pirelli tires didn't always used to be able to do is in the old days, you'd overheat your Pirelli tire and it was just cooked. It would never come back. Now they have a little more persistence. If you overheat them, if you're careful, you can bring them back and get the same performance out of them, which Leclerc did, I think, to everybody's amazement in the first stint. No one thought he would get that far
it was good
on the soft tire. And then Norris, I mean, I remember we were sitting going like, oh, well, Leclerc's got medium tires on. Maybe the softs are going now and he can start chasing. Oh, no, wait. No. Norris is clearly going to pass Leclerc on his soft tires that he somehow recovered magically.
Jimmy says the restraint that Spanner shows not to yell nerd at Matt is commendable. But to all the people who say, like, stop interrupting Matt with the tires, I didn't interrupt there. I hope you're happy. I hope you're happy with what you just got there. I didn't follow any of it, and neither did you. But that battle between Leclerc and Norris was pretty cool, and it was great to see like how that developed. And you kind of go, wow. Maybe I think people were starting to sort of criticize, well, maybe a different driver would have gotten past. But I think maybe the Ferrari was running slightly lower downforce. Certainly Leclerc was doing really well with his battery management, deploying it in the right places. And you go, Norris was just doing this thing where he seems to favor the outside over and over again. And we saw it against Verstappen last season. I think his thinking is probably, well, that's the clean side of the track. Both Leclerc and Verstappen have similar defensive styles where they'll really jealously guard the inside. And so like, I was screaming at the screen, just going, oh, just Norris, just go to the grass. Like if you do whatever you need to do to get to the inside, because it was very frustrating. And then finally he did start going, right, I'm going to send it down the inside, get on the marble. The marble seemed like a lot more here than normal. It did seem like crazy amount of marbles. So when he went into turn one, it didn't work. But then like later on, I think down to 10, 12, eventually he did get that done.
Yeah. And this has been and continues to be probably the biggest, what would you say, the biggest mark against Norris is he is not always the most creative or inspired of the overtakers.
No, I don't
think he's quite a Bottas.
I think if you've got Norris behind you, I think you know what to do. I think if you've got Piastri behind you or Verstappen behind you, it's a little bit less, it's harder to read. Whereas I think with Norris, you kind of go, right, I need to just block that inside. There is enough video evidence that really jealously guarding the inside will probably do you well against Norris.
Yeah, and part of that is the car having enough delta to make the overtake on the outside. Part of it is a willingness to go deep on the brakes on the outside, which, remember, he got constrained very early on because of his off tracks. In that first battle with Leclerc, he was already on 3 strikes. It was a black and white flag next time that happened. But fundamentally, it's also Leclerc. We were heaping praise on Verstappen. But I sometimes think that of the drivers of Verstappen's era, and I count Leclerc there, I think he might actually be better at wheel-to-wheel than even Verstappen, because there have been several clashes between the two of them where he has just outfoxed Max. And to pass that person, well, you're passing someone who is very intuitive and gifted. So it made Lando's life harder. But the other thing is in the cool down room, I don't know if you saw, Lando does not like this track. He mentioned like
Oh,
17 times how hard this
okay.
track is. So this might also be a little bit of a bogey track for him too.
It's a great track though. Oh my god, I just
It is hard.
I love Circuit of the Americas. I love the different lines you can have into corners. I love the turn one chaos. There's loads of corners that just invite a dive bomb, and so we've got lots of whose fault is this is over the years to discuss. But yeah, it's a fantastic track for me. It is up there. It is it is Silverstone. It's Spa. It's Circuit of the Americas. Like at the absolute top modern F1 tracks. But yeah, Leclerc was defending great, and you saw against Hamilton as well. When Hamilton was got a run on him due to his mistake in the sprint race, Leclerc, it's like his instinct kicks in. He's a very aggressive racer, and yeah, I think like he is also. You're probably with Verstappen. He goes over that line quite a lot, and you need the steward's intervention. And I think in a different era, if he wasn't the Michael Jordan of Formula One, some decisions might have gone differently. Whereas Leclerc is less over that line. But yeah, in that battle, what we saw really was Leclerc fighting a glorious losing battle, like a really honourable defeat. It was the 300 at Thermopylae. 300 men of Sparta facing a million Persian warriors. And almost at the beginning of the race, I was like, well, what are you doing? He put bolts on the softs and says, right, I'm going to use that to try and get to the front. And he admitted in the post-race interviews that was optimistic. And he does just enough to get in. He does just enough to ruin the battle for the lead in a way. And so the softs work in that regard. It looked like it was going to be, that's a stretch too far. Those softs aren't going to last. They did. They were able to make them last. But you just did enough just to ruin it. And so part of me was thinking like the Alonso thing with Hadjar, where he was going, oh, hero of the race. Do you know when he did that? Oh, hero of the race. Why have you bothered fighting? This happens a lot in race where you kind of go, why did you bother? Like, what was that all for? And it was a fair effort. It was a fair effort. I'm not saying don't go racing, but all he really did was stop Norris going and chasing Verstappen in the end. Like, it was a doomed endeavor.
Yeah, I looked at the numbers. You'll be happy to know I did
Yay.
that thing. And the virtual safety car. Now, this is an interesting sideline. The virtual safety car, they lost a second and a half to Max under the virtual safety car,
Right.
which you can do because you can game the sectors when you go fast and when you go slow. It's an average speed across a certain distance. So you can go very fast, go very slow, but you have to hit your sector time at or above. And Red Bull has always been extremely good about extracting, I guess, the optimum amount of time from whatever strategy they use to get through those. So the second half was lost there until he passed Leclerc on lap 20, lost another 4 seconds. When he finally pits on lap 33, he lost absolutely nothing. He lost absolutely nothing. So it was about a 5.5 second loss, and he finished 8 seconds behind Verstappen. So yeah, there is a universe where Leclerc starts on the medium,
Yeah.
and Norris hangs
accepts
out
his fate.
behind Verstappen and is never able to pass him because the car wasn't quite in the window it needed to be able to do that. But I think it was more interesting to watch.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, of course. And I'm actually not like Maria's being very dark in our patient Discord.
Oh.
All human endeavor is doomed. Yeah, I know, but try not to think about that. Just dance and drink. It's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay until it suddenly isn't. So if he'd have had that kind of tactic, as say a Singapore or a Monaco, it pays off. And I think in this scenario, it sort of almost worked. I think if they'd have been even a slightly a step softer and been having to do that without it then being a no-brainer to do a two-stop, you could have seen a scenario. Yeah, it's like it wasn't like super dumb. I'm just like saying ultimately it never actually seemed on, but it worth a try.
Well, this is where I get really curious, because you could certainly look at it and they could say, oh, I don't know, do you want to just put the soft iron and see what happens? And Charles is like, yeah, sure, why not? What's the worst that could happen? Oh, you come in early and you go to a two-stop, and instead of maybe being on the podium, you're P6.
Yeah, but
Okay,
also
sure,
yeah,
why not?
and being ahead of Norris meant that he wasn't under attack from Hamilton. So I think maybe on that soft tyre stint, Hamilton was slightly held up at times by those guys. Like Hamilton couldn't run his ultimate strategy, so that kind of, I guess that won him the podium.
Well, this is the thing, though. If you look at the grid layout, you've got a Ferrari in front of Norris. You got a Ferrari behind Norris. If you put one of them on a soft, or you have them both behind.
Yeah.
But if you put one on a soft tire and one on a medium tire, well, now you've covered both your bases. If the two-stop works out, if everyone starts having to dive for the pits, you've maximized your first stint, and so you've probably made gains. Get ahead of him and keep him behind you. Well, now Hamilton is right there. He can just follow Norris and undercut him, and maybe you get both cars ahead, except for you can't let your driver fight the driver on the medium tires if you're going to use that strategy. So I'm not sure Ferrari thought of it that way.
Well, in their defense, they've been used to Hamilton being a step behind all season. So that was not necessarily a problem that they maybe predicted. Good to see Hamilton up there fighting. He was fighting with Leclerc in that sprint race. Was on a reasonable strategy, but then the pit stop, I guess because you're overcutting, put him like 10 seconds behind. Then they're telling him to manage his brakes, and then they're saying, obviously doing the lift and coast from 50 meters out. But yeah, so like, to be fair, this season Hamilton has been behind, and then the last few weekends only, it's now starting to get to a point where Hamilton's up there competing. And so yeah, but for Ferrari, I will say, did seem to do the right things by Leclerc. So as much as we criticize Ferrari and their strategy, they did seem to roll the dice and get stuff right this weekend. Right. Where do we go? Where do we go from here, Matt? I think I want to go into championship maths a little bit. So from over 104 points down to 40 points. There was some question of like, what should McLaren do in the threat of the Verstappen charge? So now, if it finishes, and this is the thing I've been saying for quite a few races now, if it finishes Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, Matt's trying to tell me that he's got to disappear somewhere, which means I get to waffle about championship maths. So if it finishes Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, then Verstappen is going to take that title, because he's now only, I think, like 25 points behind Lando Norris. So with 5 events left, forget the sprints for a second, in that scenario, that's 35 points. So he's clear of Norris. He's 40 points behind Piastri. So in that scenario, he gains 10 points per race. He finishes ahead of Piastri as well. So in a world, which it seems like we're in, where Lando Norris is beating Piastri every week, and that means then that Verstappen, it's in his hands. All he has to go and do is win 5 races. Yeah, that's the same maths that Lewis Hamilton had in 2021. Just go and win all the races. That you've just got 5 cup finals now. Just go and win all the races. So from a crazy, can he claw back 100 points? And I was saying at that point, because the McLarens were doing, playing silly buggers. At that point, I was saying, like, I don't think it's over. I think Verstappen is still in it. People were, oh my goodness, the tweets I got. I am owed apologies from a vast swathe of Twitter users. Suddenly, it doesn't seem like it doesn't only not seem impossible. It seems at the moment like the most likely scenario. And sorry, someone up in the chat, I'm sorry, I forget who asked, said, are there any track circumstances or track specific characteristics that would favor one team or another coming up? And that is a very interesting question, because coming up, we've got Mexico. And I don't know if Matt is back up and running, but Mexico is a track that has favored the Honda power unit. It doesn't look like Matt is back in. Are you back in business, Matt?
Well, I've got a temperature warning on my camera, so you might lose video, but I'll fix it as fast as I can.
If we use video, it'll just be video of me going, while Matt talks about engines. But yeah, so like, we go, I think this is an interesting question if we're talking about championship maths, is of the tracks coming up, is there a track we go, well, that's a McLaren track, that's a Mercedes track, that's a Red Bull track?
Right. So obviously Mexico, with the altitude, has been a classic Red Bull Honda track, or Red Bull track now, I suppose. So you'd expect them to go very well there. I think Vegas is an incredibly strong track for Red Bull. Qatar might be a lot more of a McLaren track. And maybe you see Mercedes come back too because it'll be cool. It's a nighttime race. So there's one or two circuits where McLaren should or would have, prior to this update that Red Bull have sorted out, would have had a big advantage. But I think even if you look at today's race, you could see Norris's late stint performance and how well they still managed those rear tires. It's not a given that he's going to be able to run the table, and he's going to have to pretty much run the table or depend on them continuing to sabotage themselves, which seems to mostly be what's happening.
Here's
right
the thing with my scenario of Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, right? That is not taking into account what we've been talking about, which is Red Bull and Verstappen are very consistent. The McLaren drivers aren't. The McLaren drivers are making horrible errors. And by the way, Adrian says with your camera issues, Trumpets needs to back away from spanners and let his camera cool for a while and then take over the podcast later in the stint.
I just it's always a thing. You, me, it's always my tech issue, isn't it?
But we were talking about track specific thingy whatsits, I think, before Adrian distracted us gloriously.
Yeah, it's about different cars tend to suit different circuit characteristics more or less. And it's about how well you can compromise on the circuits where your weakest points are being tested. And actually I looked this up. So Max has gained 64 points in the last 4 weekends. Scored 119 of 134 possible points. But here's the interesting thing. From Silverstone to Zandvoort, he finished 5th, 4th, 9th, and 2nd. And before that was Austria and a DNF. After, from Monza until today, he's finished 1st, 2nd, and 1st.
Wow.
I mean, Max is a good driver, but clearly they found something in that car or finally brought the part that solved it.
So there's going to be coulda, woulda, shouldas. Whoever ends up losing this championship, there's going to be coulda, woulda, shouldas for sure. Like Piastri is going to look at Baku. Piastri is going to definitely look at this weekend, turn 1 in the sprint, giving away 8 points. Verstappen is going to have to look at just that temper tantrum, ramming it into George Russell, definitely deliberately on purpose and just throwing away his place there. And then Lando Norris is just, I think Canada could just haunt him. That just non-existent gap that he mistook Piastri's gearbox for a gap down the inside and just threw away a minimum of 18 points. Honestly, 25 points should have been on the table there, plus the DNF with his engine failure as well. That is 50 points on the table. He will definitely look back at that and rue that. He's now 14 points behind in the championship. That gap is down to 14 points. And you look at those 50 and you go, oh my God, he could be 36 points ahead. And that's without talking about the sprint race, where through no fault of his own, he was taken out by Oscar Piastri's maneuver. And that cost him at a minimum probably seven points as well. Yeah. So, there's definitely, like, when this season is over, the post-mortem in the off season, and when we do our League of Justice with the coulda, woulda, shouldas, this has been almost like a 2008 type championship with the major events and the things going wrong have been the deciding factors in that championship. I think the final thing of these top 3, before we go on to our whose fault is this, whose fault is it, is there a way back for Piastri, Matt? Because at the moment he looks totally lost.
Well, yeah, I mean, literally, he just has to have a good weekend. He just has to sit down.
Where's it coming from? I can't see where the good weekend's coming from.
And beat Norris, feel comfortable in the car. And that's it. It's so much of that performance at that point is confidence, which is one of the reasons why it's always impressive that Max never deviates from his output. Confidence doesn't ever really seem to be dented unless the team makes a mistake.
That young man believes in himself, doesn't he?
Yeah. And but so much of that is just down to confidence in the car. If the car feels right to him, if he's fast, he'll be fine. But this is also, I mean, and you see it across all sports. When was the last time McLaren won a championship? Who's left from when Lewis won?
A driver championship.
Yeah. Who's left? Who's left from? It's nobody. Nobody. Maybe other people have been through other championships, but the team hasn't been pressure tested in the way that Red Bull has been pressure tested, in the way that Mercedes and even Ferrari have been pressure tested. And I think, yeah, it was funny. I think that part of this is they're in uncharted territories. You've got two drivers. And again, I feel like Piastri got off to a really good start because the car absolutely didn't work for Lando. But once they fixed it for Lando, it's been very 50-50, maybe the edge to Lando.
Oh, more than an edge. More than an edge. Yeah.
And so you sort of go like, have they inadvertently created the perfect storm for throwing away the champion, for throwing away the driver's championship? But what I hope is they've created the perfect storm that sees us walking into the last race of the season with whichever the three of them wins the whole championship. Because imagine that. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
I just, with the drivers' championship and the fact that McLaren are sort of making out like it doesn't matter, I really want to emphasize that this is my opinion, that they're being weird about that. And saying that the drivers' championship isn't important is weird. Like, it's really strange. They've tied themselves up in knots. I think it's probably got a lot to do with the advocacy from the Piastri camp as well. I think that feels like he's got a stronger advocate in his background with the management than Norris has got. But you've also got this strange imbalance where, they're invested in Piastri, but Norris has been there since the beginning, has believed in that program, didn't abandon them like Sainz did to go for chasing the Ferrari unicorn. And they've just got themselves in this really strange place with their two number two drivers in a way. You know, it's two drivers that have to yield and succumb to the team. It's two drivers who have to make concessions, who have to tiptoe around. Neither of them has the Schumacher, Verstappen, Senna, Prost aura that can go and dominate a team. And so the way they've kind of dealt with it is to go, oh, but that drivers' championship doesn't matter anyway. We weren't trying to, and it's insane. It's ridiculous and it's weird. Of course, the driver championship matters. The drivers' championship is the biggest prize in Formula One. Full stop, no questions. Absolutely, just it's a no-brainer. And I'm just going to say it one more time: McLaren's being weird, saying that it's not the most important thing.
Yeah, it's if you're in business, it's a marketing multiplier. It's a 10 times, it's 100 times multiplier for your drivers and for your team. There's no way you don't want that from a business point of view. From a glory point of view, that's all anyone really cares about, unless you're sitting around with the team principals and having your drinks. But up until Singapore, I was broadly okay. Like you understand the risk you take, but you have two drivers and you treat them on equal terms and you make rules between them. We saw Mercedes get away with this forever. Even when Rosberg won, they had rules. It was a pain for the team. Just ask Mike. He will gladly tell you of the amount of pain they went through crafting increasingly intricate rules about what and wasn't allowed between Rosberg and Hamilton. But fair enough, you're committed to that. And then the Singapore thing happens, and I'm like, they just ruined it. They had it going. They had me believing, okay, you accidentally undercut your teammate to protect his position from someone behind. You restore the position. The team takes its own errors off the board, and the drivers fight it out, and we'll give you creativity and flexibility with your strategy. And then they come up with the Singapore thing. I'm like, what is that? And then you have Piastri do essentially the same thing, only like a lot worse, because neither of them finished the sprint race. And it destroys the rest of their weekend. And did I hear anything? Did I hear anything about that other than, oh, well, it's Hulkenberg's fault? Well, no, what is that? How can I mean, you've completely blown it with me. You had me believing. I was on that train. Now I'm like, I don't know what's going on there, except for they're just throwing away the championship.
There's going to be repercussions to their repercussions. Yeah. I think, yeah, from a business point of view, I think they can completely justify, yeah, well, whatever happens, oh, yeah, Max won, but we won the constructors. That's what they'll
Yeah.
do. They'll just double, yeah, but we won the constructors. That's the most important thing. And as I've said before, in a way, it will be easier for them if you go into 2026 and neither of them has won the drivers' championship because you go, well, you both lost. And I think, like, I don't know if this is harsh. It just at the moment, it feels like McLaren has two number two drivers. They've managed to have they've out Cadillac before they've even started in Formula One. So I think we're going to ask a question that we like to ask here.
Whose fault is
Whose fault is it? There was a few racing incidents, not many actually. Uncharacteristically, the United States Grand Prix was quite muted, even in the sprint race with lots of drama. Most of that race was under safety car. I think we had maybe 3 racing incidents and maybe like 3 laps of action where you could say there was racing, and then the Grand Prix itself was very muted from what we saw on TV. But we did have some racing incidents, and we had Carlos Sainz versus Kimi Antonelli. That was our first point of contact. So Matt, whose fault was it?
Well, if you ask me, I actually sort of love this one because it illustrates a lot of what is challenging in racing. I think ultimately it was an avoidable collision. And I think I mostly blame Antonelli for being a rookie.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
We disagree.
And I will point out that his fellow rookie, Oliver Behrman, got passed almost exactly the same way without incident, although Carlos was a little bit farther ahead. But, or you could even point at, say, if we're going to go back to the sprint race, that lovely move that George Russell made on Max Verstappen. Somehow Max was looking in his mirrors.
Yes.
And saw Russell coming and just opened up his steering and then complained about it on the radio. Thing with Antonelli, he was definitely fighting with Sainz. He's going into that situation. And then he's like, how did I get hit? And the thing from Sainz is, which I think I appreciate Sainz being honest about this. He's like, look, I saw it. I thought I could get away with it. I realized that I realized there wasn't the space there.
Oh,
and
he said
I
that.
thought he knew I was there.
I didn't hear that.
I thought, yeah, no, like he went for it, saw that Antonelli wasn't going to leave him room and tried to brake, but he locked the brakes when that happened. But fundamentally, Antonelli should have been wide awake to an attempt there, because in those 3, in that little you always miss the first apex.
Yeah.
And he left that door wide open. No way you don't at least look in your mirror before you turn your wheel. As someone who drives in New York, like, you got to do that, or else you're just asking for trouble. And I think probably a lot of drivers wouldn't have had an accident there. But I think Antonelli is still learning a bit. But also, Sainz is a veteran. He knows Antonelli's a rookie, so you know.
So it's funny. I blame Sainz,
Yeah, I
and
know.
I feel that's a dive. It's from too far back. You're allowed to dive bomb. You're allowed to go for it, but he's too far back. I think we talk about this disappearing wedge, and I feel like that's a phrase that has gone out of fashion in the last few years, because, or certainly in the last couple of years, because we feel like the inside car now is entitled, much more entitled than the outside car. So you only have to have your wing mirror alongside the cockpit. Oh, I don't know. I've lost track of. No, you have to have your front axle along the wing mirror of the car on the outside, and then you're entitled to room. But I don't think Sainz was even close to that. But it's like, if you were karting, if you were in our Missed Apex karting competition and Sainz was that far along, you would expect the outside car not to turn in. But F1 is not karting. So you go. Adrian has actually dropped in that Sainz has got a grid drop of 5 positions for the next race. That's actually quite harsh.
It's the conversion of the 10-second penalty that he couldn't serve during this race because he didn't finish it.
Okay, yeah. So Heidi's saying there was never really a gap there. So I don't think that move was on, but I think you grow up racing and you go, yeah. If you exist, you are putting the driver in front in the position to kind of decide, like Senna. It's like, okay, I've put myself here. you can turn in and you can block me, but if you do that, we have a crash. So we have a crash and it's my fault, but guess what? You are now out of the race as well, and you're out of position as well. And so that's an interesting lesson for Antonelli. So you go, Antonelli, you're technically right. Sainz has got the penalty, but would you have been better off just opening the steering, leaving that gap, going to the outside, and carrying on with your race?
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have lost the position, and he wouldn't have been sent to the back of the line.
Yeah.
And to me, like just the wording of it is what frustrates me so much about how these rules have come together. Because essentially they're like, Scarlo says, he thought Antonelli knew he was there. When he realized he didn't, he tried to avoid the collision, but Antonelli didn't know he was there. And then they completely ignore the fact that maybe a driver should be aware of something alongside of them and just say, well, his axle wasn't here, so therefore it's your fault. And I'm just like, that just doesn't really engage with drivers needing to have situational awareness. Because when they do, you get these amazing multi-corner battles where the driver on the outside has like a sliver of tire on the track, and they're buzzing when they talk about these battles like that, whether they won or lost. They're like, oh, it was just amazing. And we all as fans love it.
Yeah.
And this is just absolutely, it's killing it because you're not demanding the drivers pay attention and be aware in situations where you should expect that kind of thing.
So, yeah, Maria's saying in our Discord chat, now everyone knows that Kimi will not budge. Okay, but now everyone knows that Sainz will send it. So there's kind of this psychological thing where you're messaging the rest of the grid, this is what I do, this is how I race. And there is definitely that psychology with drivers on the grid. So Verstappen has got this aura around him where people know what Verstappen is going to do. And a lot of the drivers don't stand up to him. We saw Piastri stand up to him in Abu Dhabi, and you go, okay, well, that's kind of a risk because you know Verstappen's going to hit you. But sometimes, well, you have to stand your ground. Verstappen hit him. Verstappen got the penalty, and you go, not massively proud of this, but you know, in my 20s when I was playing, Saturday League football, I'm 5'7". I'm not the most intimidating presence in midfield, but within the first 5 minutes, if there was a 50-50 challenge, I'd make sure that I put my full body weight, full elbow in, and the amount of times, even with big guys, that next time there's a challenge, they go, oh, that hurt last time. And you go, right, it bought you.
Make them think twice.
Yeah, it bought you like 5 yards or like, a yard of pace. It bought you a couple of seconds to think. And I think it's a valid tactic in racing. My God, just look at Van Gien. Van Gien, if he's the car alongside me in karting, not so much now because we've got a bit of an understanding where we just don't want to take each other out because we're sick of arguing with each other about racing incidents. But you've got Van Gien up the inside. You kind of know he's not yielding. He is coming through. Whereas if you see you and me, you kind of know we're nice and we're probably not going to wipe you out.
Yeah. No. It's an interesting balance between being absolutely cutthroat and killer and just being too nice to win.
Yeah.
And anyway, but for me, the frustration is larger. It's about awareness. Yeah, it's Sainz's fault. Sainz admits it's a fault, but I feel like there is a fair portion. I feel like that shouldn't have happened if Antonelli had been paying attention.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
This season, though, you had the same thing in Miami with Sainz absolutely 11-ing it down into turn 18 in Miami on the inside of Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton also didn't get out of the way, but I think now if Sainz is on the inside of you, he's coming through. So that might serve him well going into the future. Build the reputation of, yep, I'm coming through. Is Sainz about to come through? Yes. you sort of put that in your mind, like Sainz is the kind of guy who does that. GG says, what happened to gentleman racing? Wow, that might have died.
Fiction.
That might have
It's
died.
a fiction.
Yeah, it might have died in the
They
50s.
might have been gentlemen, but they weren't racing.
I'm terribly sorry about hitting you there, fellow. Yeah, the other one is Behrman and Tsunoda. Now, this is an interesting one because obviously I've got a big bias with Yuki Tsunoda. And so Stuffy was messaging Scott, Stuffy Tuffy, messaging in on WhatsApp, very much putting that on Tsunoda. I feel like the move kind of wasn't on, but that's a separate issue to is what Tsunoda did bad.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a chance to look at all of the sources, both on boards, but I did go back and watch a number of times. And the only thing I did see was someone in our chat went and looked at the telemetry and said that on the lap where the incident happened, Tsunoda braked much earlier. So was it a brake check? Was he braking earlier to take a tighter line? Well, you could ask him. I'm sure he won't tell you. He actually wouldn't even respond to us if we did ask him. So I think Behrman was being incredibly optimistic.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think he committed to that inside line when there was barely a car's width there to begin with, and before you could really see fully where Tsunoda was going to put the car. Now, he said this is Tsunoda moving in the braking zone. But, if you were trail braking, you are moving in a braking zone, for one. And for two, there was room to the outside as well if he had that much of an overspeed. And he chose the inside thinking Tsunoda would run the standard racing line there or maybe squeeze a little bit to the inside. But Tsunoda had either because he saw in the mirrors or because he decided to and looked in the mirrors and thought he had enough room to take a more defensive, tighter line to force Behrman around the outside.
You can look in your mirrors and take a defensive line. And it's difficult in that particular corner because that's the final left-hander before the Istanbul rip-off. And so you're braking like for a lot longer. You're trail braking. You're really getting
you're braking
the weight
to
on
the
outside.
Following apex, basically.
So
that's what you're braking for.
So it's not quite like at the end of the straight where you go, well, that braking zone, you're braking in a straight line, so you have to hold your line. It's sort of objective what the racing line is. To me, and this is as a Tsunoda fan, I do feel like he took an erratic jink to the left. I don't think it physically affected Behrman because he was too far behind anyway. Behrman has obviously reacted to that and gone off, and I can't believe that didn't result in the safety car we were all hoping for.
Yeah, no, I think the real tragedy of the race is that Behrman didn't collect Tsunoda and calls a safety car, that everyone came in and changed their tires for a sprint to the end.
Exactly, we have a nice reset. So I feel like Behrman got spooked, and I feel that that's on him. Behrman got spooked, and he had that off. If he hadn't have reacted, I don't think he hits Tsunoda anyway. I will say this, as a Tsunoda fan, I'm not particularly happy with this weekend from Tsunoda. Obviously, he's finished 7th in the points in the sprint race after not being able to set a lap in the sprint quali. I think he's driving angry, and I think that there's some little bit of mentality that I'm picking up on, openly saying that Lawson is out to get him. It is
the beef.
This is
the beef with Lawson. I mean, this is what Formula One lives for now.
I know, but he's basically had his "they raced me so hard" moment, which was Alex Albon saying "they raced me so hard." The Toro Rosso drivers, and I think like you need to rise above that. You're the senior driver to Lawson and Hadjar. You're the guy that's got the Red Bull seat. You know they're after you. Yes, of course they're after you. They're going to get out of the way of Verstappen because they've been ordered to. They're going to mess with you because you're their direct rival. You can't do it. It sounded horrible when Albon did they raced me so hard. It sounds horrible that Tsunoda is going on there going, Lawson ruins everything for me and he's always getting at me. And so I didn't like that. And I felt like that move on Behrman, is like, well, hey, look, your teammate won, you're racing Haas's. Let's just chill on the driving angry, and that move looked erratic. It didn't look like a standard defensive move, and it was almost unnecessary because I just don't think that Behrman would have got past that. So I'm not happy with that as a Tsunoda fan.
Yeah, that it was far off the standard line. That's the strongest Behrman argument you can make. Is I don't think you don't see anyone, even if they're defending, really take that tight of a line. So I think that's a fair criticism. But if you're in front, you're fully entitled to take that line as a defensive line. And I don't know. Tsunoda is interesting to me. I actually thought it was a good weekend for him because he did have double points. And even though they kicked him onto the soft tire to get data for Max, he still managed to come 7th. And I know he's off of Max and this car. but it seems like he's clawing back to what I would call a respectable, clear second driver who may not even be driving fully the same car as Max.
No, I don't
Position.
I don't believe it's the same car, but they're probably in step. They're moving in step together within the field. So the fact that Tsunoda is looking more competitive, it is another indication of, yes, Red Bull is now relatively higher up the grid compared to McLaren and the rest of the grid. So yeah, Tsunoda being up there is a sign. You know, when he was at the back of the grid, you go, okay, well, Verstappen is struggling with this car that just isn't competitive compared to the rest of the field. With Tsunoda being more comfortable and being higher up the grid and being more on pace, well, then you go, oh, okay, well, that is a really good indicator that actually, yes, yeah, Verstappen's not driving a tractor anymore. He's driving a genuinely competitive car, I guess. So, right.
Yeah.
I wanted to. What other racing incidents were there? So obviously poor weekend for Williams overall. Sainz has that incident. He gets the P3 in the sprint, so I think
The
they
podium
can
in
be
the
happy with
spread.
that.
I mean, they
Oh,
showed what they had.
It's not
It's
podium.
not going to make
It's
any.
not a podium. It's not a podium.
If you stand on it and it looks like a step, it's a podium.
There was no step. They were all just level together. It's a sprint, not a race. No podium. No champagne. Stand by it. It's not a podium. Doesn't count. And oh, hang on. Damn, that means we can't.
You get
count.
points for it. It
Yeah.
counts.
And that means we can't count Lewis's win either. So hang on, let me have a think about that one. But obviously Albon then has that incident with Bortoletto as well. So overall, a very forgettable weekend probably for Williams. Actually, in fact, I might save what I was going to say next for the awards, Matt. So why don't we move on to the podium? An intense and involved COTA Grand Prix, United States Grand Prix, that seemed to last forever. And yes, there is a little bit of Stockholm syndrome because the sprint races are just part of Formula One now. And if you're going to have a sprint race, at least have it at COTA. At least have it at Silverstone. At least have it at Spa. At least have it somewhere where you can go racing. Things are interesting. Have it at Austin. Yeah. Don't have it at Singapore. Don't have it at Monaco. Have those sprint weekends where it can add a little bit of variety and a bit of jeopardy to the weekend. And thank goodness there's no more Parc Ferme. The teams can test, they can adjust, and then they're not locked in. So we're not getting that complete spoiler from a race weekend just by what we've seen on the sprint. So yes, in that way, I'm resigned to it. I will stick to my guns and say it's a bit much. When the race was starting today, I was like, we've had a lot of Formula One already. And is there any need for a sporting event to last the entire weekend where you have to be intensely focused on it? I'm not sure. That is still taking some adjustment. But yeah, okay. I enjoyed my weekend. It was dramatic. And we are 5 races out from the championship decision, from the championship result. And there are 3 cars still in it. So it's very hard to complain. If you want to follow Missed Apex, make sure you follow us. We are much more active now on Instagram, Missed Apex F1, Spanners Ready as well if you want to follow me. And you can follow Matt at MattPT55 on all your social media. We're on TikTok at Missed Apex F1, and I'm on X at Spanners Ready and Blue Sky as well. Matt, we're going to do some awards. Yeah. We're going to do some awards here. So we're going to start off with the bad award so that we can end positive. So I'm going to ask you,
oh no, you missed the apex.
Who missed the apex for you?
Oh, this is a target-rich environment for me. But I'm going to choose by far the most obvious one, and I'm going to go for Oscar Piastri in the sprint. Not only he missed the apex, but
big.
He hit his teammate, and that's just
he hit everyone.
Why?
He hit so many people. That was that was a
lot of carnage. Yeah.
I'm really still surprised that doesn't warrant a penalty in any way. To cut across that entire field and wipe out 4 cars.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the biggest win was that it was Hülkenberg, who nobody cares about, and his own teammates, so they're not going to complain to the FIA or the stewards about it.
Yeah.
That's how you get away with that, as we've learned in the past. I felt bad for Hülkenberg, though, because that was a great starting position and a good start for him. And he was just like, oh, I'm just going to follow the car in front of me, what?
And isn't it interesting that Alonso lost out as well? And like of the 2 most dramatic multi-car crashes in recent history, Singapore 2017 and Austin 2025. Both times, Alonso was, for no reason that we can fathom, uncharacteristically right at the front and just ends up getting taken out. So yeah, go and watch. If you didn't watch Singapore 2017, go and watch Alonso's onboard. He makes the most magnificent start, and then out of nowhere, just for no reason, Raikkonen's Ferrari just clatters across the front and just like he would have.
It's the saddest thing.
He would have been
he's
in
just
like fourth or something from that in that horrible McLaren. And so, and it's happened again, really through no fault of his own. Like he made a good start. He was up the inside of Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg had left him space, and they get wiped out and taken out.
Again, just being aware, knowing with the other drivers there, even if technically Hulkenberg was entitled to just go right to the edge. Yeah. He's like, no, I can see there's a car there, and I'd rather finish there. Oh, well, I'm not going to finish the race now anyway. I might as well. Yeah.
And what was it? I didn't say this on the sprint review, but Hulkenberg lost his wing. Sonoda mounted it and had it. And then when Sonoda finally shook off the wing, Hulkenberg then hit his own wing.
Again.
His own wing. Oh, you've been taken up by your own wing. That was horrible. My missed Apex award goes to Colapinto. Sorry, Argentina. But Colapinto asking if he could overtake his teammate, wanting team orders, and then ignoring his team and overtaking anyway, unless we missed a radio message, pissing off your team for P17 has to go down as the missed Apex award.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. He's like, well, I don't have a guaranteed drive, so I might as well try and make some advertising for myself while I'm still in a Formula One car. But yeah, I mean, at that, although why not let them race? They're at the back of the field. Actually, never mind, because crashes cost money. Forget it. Answer my own question.
Mini missed Apex award for Hajar. Actually, it's been a bit disappointing. Hajar has had a persistent power unit issue, which seems to have lost in performance. But that quali crash, that looked like his error. It just looked like he was squiffy, looked like he was too much speed. That section after the Silverstone rip-off bit, where you're going down the gear, so you sweep in. The left is flat, the right is flat, and then a little bit of brake for the left, and then you're coming chunking down the gears. And that, I think it's turn 5 or 6. It's the final right-hander of that segment. Like, you have to be really patient to tuck in so that you've got a line before you enter the Suzuka section. And like, I always mess that one up in iRacing, but I'm me. But it just looked like he was way too hot in that, and I think that goes down as a mini error.
Yeah, I mean, I would defend him to the extent that the wind had picked up and was from a direction that made that section exceptionally tricky. But, it could also just be him getting slightly excited.
It's so good judging people from
Isn't it fun? Isn't it fun to sit behind your computer and just criticize people who are the best in the world at what they do?
When I was watching an onboard of Norris, and the onboard is so stable and it looks so slow that it feels fairly similar to what we're doing in the sim, especially when you've got the VR headset on. And I just had this delusional moment where I was like, I'm pretty sure I could do Kota. Like, I've done it so many times in the sim. I just had this really delusional moment. I was like, yeah, I can do it. But that stabilized onboard just makes it look very relaxed as they're steering into every corner.
Yeah, and you're not getting any of the bumps. You don't get any of the wind. You get none of the G-forces. Yeah, this is the curse of golf. I tell you, it looks easy on TV.
No, but with golf, like I've had an eagle on a 370-yard par 4 before. So I hit like the drive of my life. It hit a great. It was in the summer, so it bounced long. It had the wind was behind me, and then I had a 50-yard pitch, which I chipped up, landed short of the hole, and went in. And you go, well, I've just done the same thing professionals do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
once.
Once. Exactly. Once. Yeah. But yeah, you look at these guys and they're making these split-second decisions with braking. And the reason it looks easy and comfortable is because they've hit the brakes at the right point. They've moved the weight onto the correct tire. They've done all these things. They've got the correct brake bias. They've had to deal with lift and coast. Like, these guys are incredible. And the fact that it looks easy is amazing.
I love, there used to be a channel on YouTube that would annotate Lewis Hamilton's qualifying lap, and every single button and rotary he touched, they would annotate. And you'd get through one qualifying lap. So like 120 different things happened in that 90 seconds that he adjusted on his steering wheel while he was driving, as fast as anybody was ever going. Yeah, it's an easy trap to get sucked into, but oh man, yeah. I'll tell you what, here's the difference. If you're a professional, if you're a Formula One driver and you're driving around, your team can say, we'd like you to pick up 0.3 a lap that's over 5 kilometers long and lasts over 90 seconds. And you're so good, you can be within the margin of error for being faster or slower on purpose for 0.3 of a second over that whole distance. It's just, it's a completely different skill than you think it is.
Oh, one thing I did notice, I don't know how relevant this is, but there was a moment where I thought when he was Norris was chasing Leclerc that maybe he was slightly over driving. So with Circuit of the Americas, there's a lot of high speed into low minimum speed apexes. And in that moment, and I only know this from trying to, karting and iRacing, you get to that slowest speed and that's where I try and do the most turning. So I try and do the most turning at that slowest speed. And in those moments, it looked like Norris was having to do quite a lot of overcorrecting. So I wonder if that is because they didn't have the same setup time or they didn't learn their lessons from practice and the sprint, and they ended up with a car that was a bit more off balance. Because I've not noticed that with Norris. Oh, you think that's right, Matt? Yeah.
So that is 100% right. Yeah. That is the 2 or 3 tenths a lap that they lost out from not having the data and being able to optimize for the Sunday conditions. They had to use more of their models and their drivers in the sim to guess at what they thought was going to happen.
So I've not noticed that from Norris particularly before, and it was just that crossover from the maximum rotation to getting on the power. That's when he looked like he was having to do those little rotations.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The other thing is that there's a difference between when your wheel naturally wants to start to unwind itself. If you keep on going, there's sometimes more grip on the other side of that. So sometimes you'll see drivers sawing at the wheel. It's because they're trying to find the grip beyond where the wheels want to start righting themselves and pointing in a straight line again.
Yeah, interesting. I love watching that. My mind's just started going off on one now. It's like, if we got the whole Missed Apex crew and you could just line up like all different forms of race car and just go, where would we all fall off on the scale of like, can you operate this car? Like, could we all jump in a F4, in a F3? Like, where would it be? I'd be really curious. All we need is infinite money to make that happen. But let's end the show by doing our Good Thing Award. Matt, who hit the apex for you?
Well, I got so distracted by this fun discussion that I completely forgot who I'd picked. But, I think I'm going to have to go for Max and Red Bull. Lauren Meckies.
What a comeback.
Don't know what he's done. He says, I didn't bring any new parts, but clearly he's found some kind of a switch somewhere in the back office and said, I wonder what this does, and hit it. And man, I love it, especially because that tantalizing prospect, like you said, 3 drivers, 5 races, any of them could win. How often do we get that in Formula One? And enjoy this, people. It does not happen often.
Barely ever. I'm going to give my Thing of the Weekend award to Nico Hülkenberg, actually. So qualifying P4 for the sprint race, and then I think finished 8th. So like a clear best of the rest in the race. And this is it's not a spike. This seems to be a trend that Nico Hülkenberg is just performing very, very well over there at Sauber. Guys, sorry if we have whispered. Sorry if Matt has followed my tone of having to whisper. I'm desperately trying to not wake up any of my family. We will be back midweek because I think Mexico is next Sunday, isn't it? So yeah. So we're going to be here midweek, and I think I'm going to have Jono and Christian for the preview, and I think I'm going to have Matt and Jono for the race review because it's going to be another late one. Go and click the show notes below to all our social media links, and do consider, if you've gotten to this point of a late night race review, maybe we are worthy of your support by going to patreon.com/missedapex. Help us continue to compete at the very top of the iTunes episode charts, the sports charts. We do well there because we're able to commit the time because our patrons support us. Patreon.com /missed Apex. But wherever we see you next, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. Now let's see how much trouble I'm in and who I've woken up in the house.